Hello and well met, folks. This is Founder Layron with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. It's been a while since I have done some AI videos because of the evolution and changes that have been going on. I've been kind of refraining from making any because they change so rapidly. But this function I'm going to show you now is kind of becoming more of a thing, meaning that it is being incorporated a lot more in generative AI tools. So what we're going to do is take an existing PDF. This will be one that I own, and this is the Panovo Player's Primer Guide. So essentially, this is the content that I've been working on with Robin and the late Rob 2e. This is her world that we kind of worked together on, and this is a module that's available on the Fantasy Grounds store. But I also want to show you how to utilize a generative AI tool such as ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure that Claude 3.5 will work as well. Just remember that the context menu or the context token availability is limited. So you don't want to upload or try to utilize an entire PDF if you can help it, because that is very taxing on the generative tool. So even though they've increased memory and you have a larger context window now, it's still basically around 300 pages of a PDF, and that includes artwork and everything else. So when you feed it a large PDF that's over, I'd say over 100 pages, it can make it'll make it work too hard, and it will essentially not give you the results you're hoping for. So it's actually better to have smaller PDFs and smaller documents and query the content in sections instead of trying to do it all at once. But I am going to show you how to do that and a way to do it, actually. And then this will give you some context on how to do it for yourself. So these big, huge PDFs are probably not ideal for this sort of situation. You'll have to copy and paste, sections at a time, depending on what kind of content you're trying to create. The other thing is you're not going to be able to reprint or restructure the entire PDF. It'll protect the PDF copyright. What you're going to do is use it for context to build your own content. So you're not going to be able to reproduce the PDF. That's not the functionality. As a matter of fact, they've gone to great lengths. When I say they, I mean the AI publishers and the people who develop the software. Is they've gone through great lengths to try to get away from the perception and the uses of their tools to copy, to steal people's work. So in this particular case, I'm using the Panovo rule set, and this is something that I developed with Robin and Rob. So this is actually our PDF. So it's not like I'm taking Paizo or someone else or Wizards of the Coast, in which they don't do much PDFs. But the point I'm trying to make is that if you own these things and you're going to be using them, if you use them at your home and for your own use case, that's fine. You start making derivative works and selling those, make sure that you're following the copyright laws and the guidelines, because that's something that a lot of authors, artists, and publishers are upset about, and they are making a big deal about it. And there's court cases going on, all kinds of stuff. So you want to avoid that dumpster fire if you can help it. But if you're going to just do this for yourself and you want to make the content kind of you're unique to your game, I'm going to show you some steps, and I'm going to give you some tips and that sort of thing. So first thing is I make a brand new campaign in Fantasy Grounds. So this will not be incorporated into my game yet. I'm going to actually create a whole new session, and this is going to be where I build all of my content that I want to run in my game. So if you do this in the same instance as your game, as your session, this can become quite complicated and it will confuse you. And if you try to load up modules in the same game that you're playing, you'll have duplicate links and everything. It'll really mess things up. So the best practices, if you're going to build content, is to create a separate campaign. And if you're already in the middle of a campaign and you decide that you want to start building content for it, like custom stuff beyond what's already out there, then what will happen is that you'll notice that you kind of shoehorned into this and you kind of painted yourself into a corner. So to help avoid that, what you want to do is create a campaign that's separate and unique. And by making a copy of your actual campaign folder, renaming it, and then copying it back into the modules directory, and then use that as your starting point to build your custom content. And then from that point on, you just export whatever you need and load that into your actual game. So if you haven't started fresh and you're already like halfway through an adventure and you start building tables and custom NPCs and that sort of thing, and you want to reuse those in other campaigns, make a copy of your existing campaign where all your work is, rename that folder, load that up in Fantasy Grounds, and use that as your work folder. And don't build or develop any longer in your regular campaign. And I know that's kind of weird and kind of messed up, or maybe it's confusing, but you want to have a development campaign and then a campaign that you run in. So that's kind of the best advice that's out there for making sure that your game doesn't get messed up and that your content you're making doesn't get all confused and miscombobulated and stuff like that. So in this case, we would be using something like this book campaign chapter thing to copy and paste data in here, attach images, that sort of thing. So if you go over here on the right to books and you pull this up, you can start building your own structure. Normally I start off with a kind of like an outline, and then I'll query the actual PDFs or documents or whatever you have uploaded, or just let it do its own thing. But we're going to go into ChatGPT now, and we're going to start looking at how we can use that to help us develop content based off of either a document or a website or whatever it is that you think you need for your content. If I was going to do a Pathfinder type thing, I would use the Archives of Nethys as a kind of like a reference point. And then if I had some Paizo PDFs, I would just have like one at a time. You don't want to load multiple PDFs and multiple content into one conversation. What ends up happening is you run out of context length, so it just gets too convoluted and it confuses it, and then it starts hallucinating and giving you bad information or just stuff that's unrelated. So that tends to be what the trend is in a lot of generative AI tools at this time. It's gotten much better. It does that less, but it still happens. And quite often when I create content, I have to go back and look at it and make sure that it's actually right or that it makes sense. So it doesn't do all the work for you, maybe like 2/3 of it. You still have to be the judge, the arbitrator, the person who goes back, the QA, and make sure that it's right. Because it does even state that at the bottom that it gets it wrong. So it does make mistakes, and it's not perfect yet. It's getting close to being really well received and used in the industry, but it's still not reliable enough. So that's just kind of a disclaimer. It's not the answer for everything. What I use it for, honestly, is not only for creativeness, but I try to use it to help me organize my content and to help me type it out. I don't want to spend hours and hours typing, and I suck at typing, so that's what I use it for. It's like a big typewriter for me. I just tell it what I want it to do, and it will try to do it within the context of what I ask. So now let's go to now that we got all that out of the way, let's go to the actual website. And what I've done here is, this is my social media stuff, but I'm going to take and kind of walk you through this. So what I asked it to do up here is, and this is ChatGPT 4.0. This is a paid version. This is my personal account. So it says, help me create a YouTube video description regarding the process of using PDF and documents with ChatGPT to query and build custom content with or for the context, inspiration, and influence of a given PDF. So namely, taking a DnD5e PDF in this case, that you own and creating content from your sources for your personal use. So it generated this nice little description here on how to do that. So that's pretty cool. I like that. And then this is I took that information, started a new conversation, and I have a custom Fantasy Grounds Academy social media ChatGPT session that I can call upon. And what this does is it already has all the links, all the resources that are related to our community. So when I want to make a social media post, I just post, I draft it, and I can draft it in here too. And then I'll have it add the thing. So it adds all this extra stuff here. So I don't have to keep doing that over and over and over. So what I'm getting at is you can do a one-off or a one-shot type query where you just upload a PDF and go for it, you know. And the other way to do it is to create kind of like a launching point, or in this case would be a custom chat GPT, and that will allow you to have a starting point when you want to create content consistently, or at least with the same type of starting point. So in other words, if you wanted to make something for Pathfinder and you have a Pathfinder PDF and you want to base a bunch of adventures out of it, I would just upload that, and maybe the core, if it have a OGL or some kind of base core, or use the Archives of Nethys as a reference. That way, when you're building content, it's specific and you don't get too far off topic. If you're too broad with the content that you apply or that you ask for, you're not going to get exactly what you want. And if you're too narrow, it's not going to know what to do with it. So there is a fine balance between too much and too little. Most people start off with too little at first, but then they go, oh, okay, so then they go the other direction where they're just giving it too much. So there is a fine balance, and you'll find that out when you practice using AI generative tools. So I'm going to start a new session, but before I do that, I'm going to actually create a custom PDF, Panovo kind of work development. I think I might already have one. So so here's Kisdir Kingdom, okay? So this is a starting point or a writing tool for the Kingdom of Kisdir, which is one of our PDF, one of our settings or our worlds or locations in Panovo. So if I open up, I can add from Google Drive, I can connect different apps, and I can upload from the computer. So I'm going to upload from the computer, and I'm just going to take a PDF that I just re-downloaded, and essentially this is a Panovo PDF, and it is something that, like I said, I worked on with Robin and Rob, and it is basically like a guide. Let me make sure I got it in the right. So documents, let's go to downloads, documents. Okay, so this is the Panovo Player's Guide. It's a pretty large PDF. I wouldn't recommend using something like this, but I'm going to go ahead and upload it. So you can take PDFs and upload them, and so this would be kind of like a live session. And I wouldn't recommend this for the one-shot type thing where you're just kind of quickly making something. But what I'm noticing here is, since this PDF is so large, that it probably isn't going to work out as well. So it's a little big for creating content in generative AI tool. And I know that some AI tools have a limit on how big the PDFs are. So you want to find one that has like printer friendly, something that doesn't have a bunch of graphics in it. The Panovo Player Primer has a ton of graphics in it. That's why it's so big. It's like several megabytes. So I will say, with the PDF and custom instructions, please list please list the main NPCs. So that's what I'm going to do here. We'll say from Kizdir, because Kizdir is actually a kingdom. It's specific to the setting. I'll say and Panovo. Okay, so this is, I'm asking it to take and pull the main NPCs from the PDF and from my custom instruction. And that's what it's doing. And so as you can see, it's a valuable tool for referencing and pulling out or extracting information. So like these are our NPCs that come from the context that I've uploaded and the PDF. So it really depends on what you're trying to do, those sort of things. So this is just something that you would want to use occasionally when you're trying to get stuff. So this one, it's saying now this Panovo one is taking the NPCs out of there. And then this one came from this set of data, comes from the custom content that I've uploaded. So it's going through both sources and it's pulling out the information. So then what I could do is I can ask it to take these informations, compare them to each other to make sure that they're, that they make sense. So I'll say Prince Horik, Gemheart, Prince Horik, dear Gemheart. Yeah, so it does look like it's the same. So now what I'll say is compare NPCs and ensure that they are the same or similar. Or I'll say the same in details. So this is just some basic inquiries and okay. So file 1, Kizdir in the revised document. Okay, and then this is notes 2. So it goes through and it looks at these and it will compare them. And it will let you know if there's differences or if, and so this is when you want to do some proofing or checking, or maybe you got multiple sources and you kind of want to pull everything together. So it does stuff like that, which is really helpful for someone who's building content and someone that wants to create their own stuff. So this really helps with that. Now, when you actually get into creating something for an adventure, let's say, I'm going to pull up a kind of like a template. So this is something I developed for myself, and it's really not that big of a deal. You just have to kind of, use your old school knowledge and use the method of creating content like with an outlines. If you do it live and kind of inconsistently, you're not going to really get the type of output. You got to have a consistent format that really helps develop content and also keeps everything in a certain format so you kind of know what to expect and those sort of things. So it can be very problematic if you don't have organization. So just as a heads up. So what I'm going to do is take the information from here, and I'm going to actually go to the back end of this PDF, or this is not PDF, but the actual session I'm in. So when I'm going to go to Explore GPTs, and these are ones that are available. So you have one that's a writing assistant. You have image generators. So there's all kinds of custom ones out there that people have made, and a few that are made by OpenAI themselves. But if you go to my GPTs, this is where I have created different types of things. So I have a solo exploration one. I have a D&D reference, a tool for 1 D&D changes. So that's what I'm working on. I'm building this one, so when the books do release, I'll have that kind of going. I have a tool here for Tales of the Valiant. There's a promotional one. There's a hex crawler tool. Here's the Kizdir one. So I want to show you what this looks like. So if I'm going to go and edit it and you could take a look at it. So it's not editing the session I'm in, it's editing the base. I'm not going to change anything, but these are the reference documents that I had uploaded. And you want to make sure it has code interpreter and data analysis checked. And you upload these, and then you tell it your instructions. So in this case, now this is a custom GPT. So it says, you'll refer to my custom or my knowledge files when uncertain for names, places, things, dates, and lore. You are a professional game designer, and you are also a very talented fantasy fiction writer, and you will bring your knowledge and experience into my RPG adventure projects. Make suggestions based on the provided lore. Follow the OGL SRD 5.1 open license for the DnD5e rule set. Content will be for the DnD5e rule set and the Fantasy Grounds virtual tabletop. So that's the instructions. That's kind of the premise that this is built around. So the main thing is it respects the OGL as much as possible, and that it's basing it off the information I've uploaded, and that it's going to provide feedback and writing assistance. And then I just have a conversation starter. It says, help inspire me to create a one-shot adventure. So what I have is these different notes that are based off of the player primer. So I didn't even have to load the PDF because it's already part of this. But I wanted to show you that you can do it either this way or you can do it the other way. And you are limited to like 10 documents, I think, at a time. So if you've got a huge PDF, it might be best to break it up into a few chapters or a few sections or a few documents. That way it's not too huge, especially the ones that have a bunch of artwork in it. Those are very cumbersome. So this is just a way that you can create a starting point for your projects. And I try to keep them separate. Like if I was going to do one for Barovia and for Curse of Strahd, then I would, do something like that. And you don't have to necessarily have PDFs. It can be text, so you can copy and paste stuff from wiki guides or wherever you get your information from, and then put them in here and use that as your context. It does take a while to build reference documents and to build your custom outlines, but once you do that, you have it uploaded into your custom link here, and then this will allow you to query and use it for a starting point and for reference and those sort of things. So if you want to keep like a lot of your writing in context or within the canon of the lore that you're working in, or it's based off a certain module or region, whatever it might be, you load this custom knowledge here, and this helps reference that while you're creating your own content. So this is what it's based on, is in my case is this. Like I said, you can do a one-shot, one-off type thing where you don't have to do all this uploading and stuff, but you're going to get less out of it. I think that having a better starting point and these custom instructions is probably a better way to go if you're going to go long-term. If you just need a real short, quick adventure, upload your PDF live in your sessions, query it, and have it build content based off of that. But if you want to do world building and, creating your own setting and all that stuff, this would kind of be the way to go. So that's just an overview of a custom GPT. And I have ones for different things. Like I have one for Fallout. I have one that helps you interact more naturally, more conversationally. I call it Story Weaver Pro, so you can make your own stories. And I kind of give it writing styles. Like I've given it examples of like the 5-room dungeon. I give it examples of the types of authors that I appreciate, all those sort of things. So it kind of gives me a starting point when I'm writing, and I don't have to explain everything every single time. So I had this one for the Lost Caverns of Sojkant, AI solo adventures. I'm still kind of working on that. There's a Fantasy Grounds virtual tabletop effects automation tutor. This kind of works. It does get it wrong, but it puts you on the right path. So then I have a content creator, which is kind of a generic one. Virtual tabletop map creator. I haven't had any success over that. That's been a crapshoot. The minute you say battle map or map, it just goes the wrong direction. So I don't recommend virtual tabletop. As a matter of fact, I'm going to delete this one. They don't work very well. You're better off just asking it for like a relief image of a village or something like that, top down. If you say battle map or virtual tabletop, it's not even going to give you what you want. So these are just custom ChatGPTs that I've built over the months. So this one I want to really get going, and I've talked to another individual about this Unity video timestamp thing. So this is something I use occasionally when I want to capture the text from a video and synthesize it and use it for custom instructions. So there's all kinds of use cases for this for building your own content. So this isn't something I did overnight. I mean, this was stuff that I had to build up and work to. So you'll have to build your own library and your own tools, but it can be done in ChatGPT if you want. And remember, this is a paid version. The unpaid versions are a little bit limited, so you don't have as much context. There's different, and you can't do as many iterations and all that sort of thing. So I want to show you the adventure outline where I got distracted. So for documents, so I have here's an adventure creation document. So I'm going to open this up. And this is basically how I have it set up. So I'm going to copy and paste this, and I load this into a lot of my templates so that I have a thing to look at and a reference, so it's not just hearsay every time. So I use this template every time just about. I have a few variations, like one is for fantasy, one is for sci-fi, or one might be for one-shots, one might be for campaigns. It just has slightly different wording, but it gives me the foundation. So I'm going to go ahead and put this information in here, even though it's already probably baked into this. And I'm going to ask, see, I gave it a template, and this is the adventure creation template. And I'm going to say, please create a one-shot adventure based on the custom knowledge and the template below. And that's basically how I start off, is I build all that reference material first and then do something like this, and then you can then this is the payoff, right? You get this. So I want to kind of go over this with you, like what this actually does. So for adventure creation, I have the introduction, which includes story lore, background, adventure setup, all that kind of stuff. So story lore, comma, story background, comma, adventure setup. So recommended levels, the tier, number of players, that sort of thing. Players and the number of players. Okay. The adventure part would be area 1 for the DM info. So like encounters, tactics, mechanics, NPCs, hazards, traps, tricks, puzzles, setbacks, read aloud, aftermath, results. So this kind of gives you the different things. So it's giving the story outline, but also the formatting, the expected output. So this is kind of the way I'd want it to generate this. And then at the end, I have the outro, aftermath, consequences, a read aloud, reward, experience, most valuable player. Epilogue could be a potential continuation. I have stuff like that. And then an appendix for new monsters, new or modified mechanics, or new or unique magic items. And then, of course, the very end is legal attribution, disclaimers, sources, tools, credits. So this is just a way to organize this so that you have everything kind of in place before you start working. And it does take some time to work this stuff up. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and see what I get. I wasn't very specific. So if you're wanting something more specific, you're going to have to ask it to set the adventure in a certain location with a certain parameters, but it kind of knows what I want. So here's the Caldera's Secret. So this is a location in Kisdir under the ground, and it's a tier 2, levels 5 through 10, number of players 4 through 6. The recommended levels is 7 through 9, and here's the background, here's the setup. Here's where the adventure starts beginning. There's a DM info. There's a read aloud section. So I would take this information and plug it into Fantasy Grounds in the story area. So with that story frame thing, I would start copying and pasting these sections in there and start building the asset. So it's still writing this. So I like stuff like this. Like here's a hazard. So the area is unstable with fiery geysers erupting randomly. Dexterity save DC 16 to avoid 3d6 fire damage. So what I would do with that is use my NPC template and build a hazard, basically an NPC stat block. And then I would link the stat block to the location on a map if that was applicable. Then it has the aftermath. Here's the different area. 5 is the keystone chamber. Here's the aftermath for that. The outro. Here's the the reward. So I'd build a parcel for that. The appendix. So I would have the elite stone sentinel from Kisder Notes 2 and a giant fire rune. It grants +1 fire damage to a weapon when engraved. So I'd probably turn that into an item and then into an effect. So I could put that on the character sheets. And then here's the the disclaimer. It looks like it stopped. I don't know what happened here, but it was stuck. But it's almost done anyways. But so this is just a rough kind of idea, and this is your outline here, right? And you could take this and ask it at this point. Once you have this outline, the structure, then you can say, okay, let's take this part, the chapter, or whatever it is, whatever part of this that you want, and have it refine it. So I would use this as an outline, and I would take this stuff and I'd have it write this more in detail. It has most of the stuff you need, but what I would do is just work on chapter 2, or this Forgotten Tunnels area in this case. Let's say you're done with this part up here. And then I would, okay, so the encounter notes is the tunnels are home to several earth elementals attracted by the tremors. They will attack any intruders on site. NPCs is 2 earth elementals, and it's referencing the monster manual. So if you're using this around your table, personal use, that's fine. But if it was a published product that you're going to publish, then I'd probably reference SRD. But anyway, so the hazards in the tunnels are unstable. So again, I'd have to make a collapsing tunnel NPC stat block. So there's 2 stat blocks already. There's a tricks trap. So this is a hidden door leading to the area can be solved by a rune puzzle requiring intelligence or arcana checks of DC 15. So that would just be text. I'd probably bold that in the writing here so that you'd be able to see that. And then there's your read aloud. So this would be a chat bubble. And then, so you just go through this, but you can take this and refine it more. Like you can ask it to rewrite or expand on chapter 2, and then have it make the stat blocks and everything else. So, and even an image if you wanted to. So that's how I do this. So I'd take and make your outline. Well, first you got to build all your tools, right? Your reference documents, how your templates and all that. After that, then you upload, you either build your own custom GPT or you upload your PDF, whatever, and you feed it a template, and then you have it write that out as kind of like your outline. Then once you're done with the outline, then you take each chapter and break it down into pieces and build it in Fantasy Grounds. So you'll have or you can do it all at the end if you want. What I'm finding is when you're doing this, I kind of like building all the NPCs at once, building all the maps at once, so I'm not switching back and forth. But what I found out is if you do it per chapter, that's not bad. You just don't want to do it line for line. But it depends on how large the adventure is and how much content you're willing to make and that sort of thing. So it's still quite a bit of work involved when changing this content into Fantasy Grounds. So you still have to do a lot of copy and pasting. You have to build the NPCs, you have to build the parcels, you have to build the items, all that stuff. So it does still take time, but at least you have a reference point. It's custom content. You can copy and paste it. It's kind of your own, it's kind of based off of whatever you fed it. So this is probably the easiest way to achieve what you're trying to do. Hey, how's it going, Zojak? How are you, man? So anyhow, I just wanted to show you the process that I go through to create this kind of content. So if you have a good template, already established in ChatGPT, then I can go in and ask it to build the NPC stat block. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll go back to the document, and let's start off at the top here again. So this is the introduction, so don't have to do too much, but they're hired by Commander Thrain Granite Hand of Stoneguard. So what I might do is create the stat block for him just in case. So if the players attack him or they want to interact with him, maybe you want to have a token that represents him instead of just, theater of the mind. You could do that. So let's see if we can. Let's see more about him. So, what are the details of? And we'll copy and paste him. I'll say refer to the custom knowledge as well. Because I don't want it to just take the context of this, that he's hiring you. I want to know, since he's a known NPC in the world of Panovo, I want to know what he is first before I even go any further. He may not even be a good fit. There could be that. So it was saying searching knowledge. So it does that. Okay, this gives you a description. Okay, so this gives you more information about that NPC based off of the content that I uploaded earlier, or the custom GPT that I'm using. So that's where this comes in handy when you're developing content. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say create Drain's DnD5e NPC stat block using the custom knowledge and the proper text formatting for the for Fantasy Grounds. It will probably know what that is because I've given it so many examples. It should be able to do it without much problem, but sometimes it'll get it wrong. We'll see what it does. So create his D&D stat block using the custom knowledge and the proper text formatting for Fantasy Grounds. So this is important if you want to import it and use the Fantasy Grounds DnD5e NPC import tool. So far it looks right. So this though is not right. So this isn't going to work. Actually it is. This is right. Yep. So if you see it where it says strength and there's a number after it, that's not going to work. But you want to have all of these things on top and then the corresponding numbers below. And they're only separated by a space. You don't want anything else. And then it has the Dwarven Resilience, Tactical Genius, Commander Strike, Leadership, and then here are his actions. So multi-attack, Warhammer, Commanding Presence, and his reactions, Legendary actions, and then it has this list here. I don't think you need this, but you could put it on the other tab. So I want to include his background, lore, and tactics. At the end of the stat block, or just, I'll just say now, because I want it to be separate anyway, so I don't want it to rewrite necessarily the entire stat block. So while it's thinking, I can take this information and copy and paste it into Fantasy Grounds and build that particular NPC. So I'm going to hit copy and go into NPCs and start building that. So over here I got this NPC, so I'm going to make my own group, which is something that you should get in the practice of anyways. and then create a new category. And what I'll call this is, we'll just say, what was this called again? Something Caldera. Yeah. The Caldera's Secret. So this is a one-shot. The Caldera's. And what's neat is this stuff is based off the lore that we've developed together. So it's not just willy-nilly. It actually has a little bit of foundation to it. Okay, so we stop editing. Here's the Caldera's Secret. Now this is where I'm going to import the information. So what I'm going to do is I'll start importing this. So I don't know if you guys can see this because I have a lot of stuff covering. Let me see if I can move that. So yeah, I kind of have enough for you guys to it's over here on the bottom left corner. So down here. So I wanted to keep this up too so you guys can see what's going on here. All right, so what we're going to do is copy and paste the text from that group there. And so you can see all the different things here. So I'm going to right click, go to clean up text. So that all that does is just kind of shows you what it's going to look like. So that looks right. It looks good. And then on this right hand side, I'm going to grab the text that I was telling you about. So let's see. Okay, so this is his background and lore. So I'm going to grab this stuff. Hit copy. And I'm going to paste this on the right hand side. So this stuff here is for the GM to run this NPC. And then I usually I'll put his name again over here on the right. So Thrain Granite Hand. Then what will happen is formatting. It helps if you learn the shortcuts for Fantasy Grounds. Those are published around on the Atlassian Wiki Guide, and also sometimes you'll find it in the forums. It's harder to find it in the forums because they're not as organized. So all I'm doing here is doing a little bit of I mean, I can go back and do this, later, but this is kind of the process here. And the main key thing on this left-hand side is that the formatting is correct. So you can see here's a stat block, the numbers below, and then each one of these things down here, like Dwarven Resilience, has a period after it. Tactical Genius, period. Commander's Strike, and it has a recharge, and then period. So that's the most important part, is that these are written properly, and then here's the actions section. And like I said, multi-attack, period. Warhammer, period. And then, all the syntax after it. So that's kind of where this can go wrong, is if those are misspelled, or like you don't have a period, maybe a different type of punctuation afterwards. That's where these go wrong. Well, let's go ahead and hit import, and let's see what that looks like. All right, cool. So here's the stat block, and it looks like it parsed it correctly. You can kind of tell by the way it looks, and when you hover over it, it'll give you the parsed information if applicable. Oh yeah. So this is, here's all the legendary actions. Then here's the notes, how that turned out. So it looks really good. So yeah, I like that summary, and this looks really nice. So now when you run this NPC, you'll have all that. And then, of course, you can do a picture. So if you want to build a picture of this guy, let's do that. So maybe we want to, I'll say, based on the context above, create a half body image of Thrain, whatever his name is. Thrain Granite Hand, the Dwarven. Let's see. He is a military. I'll say, is he a commander? I'll just say commander. I'll say war commander. If you say military, it might think you're talking about modern technology. So war commander wearing plate mail, and he has a stout yet strong appearance, and he has a balding head and a braided beard, something like that. Appearance, throwing granite hand, plate mail armor. We'll see what happens. So if I like the picture, then I'll further develop it. I'll go in and make tokens out of it and everything else. We'll see what it does. So this would be everything just for chapter 2. Yeah, it's not bad, actually. Looks pretty damn good. Wow. I'd use that. So I'm going to give that a thumbs up. So I would take this and make a token out of it, and then I would use this picture for his picture. And then for a token camera, I'd have to develop another picture. So I'd probably start with the full body image and then do it. But this looks really good. So I'll say create another full body version of the subject above. That looks pretty damn good. I'm pretty impressed with that. Wow, that is really slick. I wouldn't write home to mom about it, but this definitely is. It's definitely come a long ways. Used to be like they'd be all cross-eyed and distorted, and then you have some weird hands. And let's see if it does the full body thing or not. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. It's kind of hard to control. But if you tell it the orientation, yeah, see, it made a whole new person here. So, yeah, that's the only problem with that. So you need the seed number from this and the portrait or the image number to help keep that consistency. So my suggestion here, the best way would have been to create a full body. So what I'm going to do is start over. And this way you start off with the full image. If you try to go the other way, it's not going to work. So say based on this, create a full body. That's why it only did a half body. Full body image of terrain. And I'm going to say vertical orientation. Maybe it'll do it. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. And a lot of the times it has to do with what you're trying to show. But I do like this picture too. I might use this somewhere else. So this is not a bad image. It's just not what I had in mind. It doesn't look like this one either. So that's the one issue that I think is problematic. Yeah, so there's mostly, that would probably work in some cases. But as you can see here, it's not exactly the full body. So what I'd have to do here is ask, basically I'm going to redo this, but I'm going to say he's got these boots or something, and that might help with the, so I'll say braided beard. He is also wearing a pair, or I'll say wearing armored boots. And the ground is a worn, I'll say granite floor. Sometimes you have to trick it, like to get it to incorporate what you want, you kind of have to describe that piece of it as well. And you kind of do it methodically, right? So you go from head to toe, kind of. And then for the background, I didn't give it any background because it kind of already knew what to do here. I didn't need to. I think the dwarven thing gave it the context. But images in generative AI tools is really interesting. It's come a long ways, but it's still problematic. Like, you could be here all day trying to get something. And what I recommend is that you get the at least get the numbers from it, like I'll show you in a sec here. Yeah, so there's the full body pose. So this is what I would start with. The only thing is I don't like the style too much, but it's not bad. It's doable. It looks like a figurine, but that's okay. It's virtual tabletop. What do you expect? And with the latest and greatest tools, you can in paint now. So I'm going to take the selection tool, kind of change the size a little bit. I don't want this sword on the ground, so I'm going to have that taken out. So you can do that now if there's something problematic that you don't like. And I'm going to say remove the sword on the floor. And it will regenerate it. And what it'll do is hopefully it'll fill that in. Sometimes it won't do it. Depends on what it is. And you have to give it context. So in other words, you can't just go around the sword. You also have to have some area around it so it has reference. So if you just do the sword, it will confuse it. You have to give it some of the ground and some of the space around it so it knows where that sat in the image. So it kind of needs a context for that. So now it's rebuilding the image without the sword, hopefully. Sometimes it'll change the sword. I don't know why it does that. Yeah, there we go. So we took the sword out. So that's something that can be done now, which wasn't available like less than a year ago. So that's a really cool thing. So this is just basically how I can create content for whatever adventure you have, especially if you're doing a lot of homebrew or you're doing a lot of custom, work in your campaign. This really helps. So I can technically use this content. It's not a complete waste. So the images, the story outline, the NPC stat block, all that stuff. When Robin says, "Hey, I need you to make an adventure," I already have something going. So then I'll have this session, and then I can go back to it and build more things with it. So this is kind of a nice way to utilize AI tools with a virtual tabletop of your choice. In this case, Fantasy Grounds. So I think this is a really helpful way to build content and kind of gives you the kind of like a foundation. So you're not having to start completely from scratch. So completely from scratch means building your templates, building your the way you want it to work for you. I so need this current running. It has nice maps, but the NPC art is mostly lame. Yeah, so you could do that. You copy and paste the descriptions of the NPCs, if there are any, and then have it generate that, and then it will help you. And you can even get these 3D things, because you could take and cut out this background and then make that part of your game and stuff. So that's something that is helpful when it comes to creating content. And what I also like is that tab on the back, because I don't think that gets used enough. Like, for instance, if Thrain had treasure that I wanted to give out, I would make or a reward, I would make that parcel and link it to his stat block. That way you're not, just looking all over for it. Usually it comes out logically, like you run the adventure and at the end they give you this, this treasure or whatever. But in some cases, this is happening in real time during gameplay. And if it isn't linked conveniently for you or in front of you, it's going to be difficult to find it. So I like to link that kind of stuff, if it's related to the encounter or to the NPC, right in the back here of the stat block. So if there was a parcel of treasure that he was supposed to give us, or maybe a starting potion, yeah, exactly, loot. We loot. Yeah, that's another thing, is you can use the loot tables that are out there that people have made, but they're very specific to certain settings or certain NPCs and such. So if you want to do your own, make your own template for that and make your own loot tables. That's a lot of work though, but you're not going to do that just for this. But if you did it for all of your games, that would be helpful. But I would just take someone else's work and just work off of that. That's the easiest way to do it. You can make copies, you can reword stuff, you can adjust it to however you like. But in this case, this Thrain Granite Hand turned out really good. I'm really impressed with the quickness, the power, the thoroughness of the tools that are available to us now. Just a couple years ago, this would have taken me like 2 days to do this and that doesn't even include the art. That I wouldn't say 2 full days, maybe 8 hours, but man, that's a lot of work for one NPC, one piece of art, and some descriptions and some outlines and stuff. So that starting from scratch like that is really difficult. It can be done. People have obviously done it. But I think most people are just converting other work. So all the typing and all that stuff's been done. Yeah, I'm all about paying for $11 for someone else's work. Yeah, exactly. Because it's kind of a how much time do you want to spend versus how much frustration and all that stuff. So I'll take that $12 and put it to good use. Like I said, you're not locked into anything. Let's say if I go to my modules and I open up some of these Panovo things, I can take stuff out of here and use it. Like if there's any tables, I can take these tables and make copies of them and change them up. So it doesn't have to be that. Let's take a look at that. I haven't even looked at the effects thing. Here's the coding effects. So class spell list. So there's a couple spells in here. I know we did a show on it, but I forget. And here's the instructions on how to use it. And updates if there are any. And then you have the spells. So these are all the different effects for the Panovo players. So if you guys use the Panovo setting, a lot of the stuff is coded so you can just drag it onto your character sheet and not have to worry about it. So this is kind of cool. I'm glad that this was done because that's really helpful if you're going to build characters, especially with custom data. It's nice to already have all that stuff ready to go. So yeah, this Panovo product is available on DriveThruRPG as a PDF. It's also available on the Fantasy Grounds store. So if you're interested, just search for Panovo. And then there's some on the Forge as well. So the effects and I think tokens and some other things are on there too. So let me think about that. Yeah, so I think pretty sure there's a tokens thing too. So let me go to assets and go to tokens. And then I'm going to type in Panovo. So you got to make sure you're in the proper, if you're in all, it's going to search everything. So you want to be in tokens in this case. So Panovo. Nope, I must not have it loaded. Shame on me. There might be portraits. Let's try that. Panovo. Nope. So this is just, if just a matter of subscribing to that. My new favorite thing to do lately is the quests shared with players at the bottom. I can load it up with links for DM only. Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. But anyways, folks, I think I'm going to go. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend, and hopefully this helps you. And like I said, the main focus of this was to kind of give you some tips and tools in building your references and your templates, and then kind of going in the direction of building your content out. And like I said, I was focusing on chapter 1 because I thought maybe if the players are going to interact with this guy who's giving them a quest, I want a stat block at least for him in case. I don't think I would need it, but I can preload some dialogue back here, So now I'm going off in the weeds here, but I'll just show you some really cool stuff. I get excited about this and I don't want to stop, but anyway, so we have the image now. Let's say we're going to use this one. Okay, so within the context of the one-shot adventure please create 5 lore-friendly and related dialogue. We'll say from Thrain. Related dialogue from Thrain about the quest. So what we'll do is, if it gives me good information here, what I'll do is I'll have, okay, so initial briefing. So here you can put all this stuff in Fantasy Grounds as dialogue options. So it's making up those dialogue, and it's talking about, you know, how you're going to do this. And you could copy and paste those into this section here. So let's just say, we'll say potential dialogue. And you may not use these, but you're going to have them ready to go. So that's why I like using this notes tab. So I might say, okay, so this is the initial briefing. So I might take that, just this information right here. You don't have to use all 5 of them. You go like that, and then what we'll do is we'll highlight this text, do Control 3, and now you have your dialogue. And then for here, you hit Control Tab, and then what we'll do is we'll put Thrain, his name there. So when it speaks, it sends it to the chat window. So let's see. Yeah, so it says Thrain. The ironclad depths have been rumbling with more than just the earth's grumblings. These tremors, they aren't natural. Something stirs deep below. I've faced enough battles to know when an enemy is preparing for war. Your task is to find out what's causing these quakes and put an end to it before the whole mountain comes down on our heads. Love it. That is really good writing, I must say. And I didn't do that. I can't take credit for it. But, I mean, just having these dialogue pieces in here would really come, you know, like you can send that to the chat, the players can read it, or one of your good players that wants to help you out might read it for you. So then you take a second dialogue and do the same thing. So blap, and then I'll change this to 2 maybe. No, I'll just leave it at that. And then same thing, hit Control 3 with the text highlighted, and then Control Tab, and then add his name again. So this is Thrain. So this one says, the ironclad depths once brought us wealth beyond measure, but that was long ago. Now it's a place of shadows and forgotten memories. The Stone Guard can keep the surface safe, but down there we need folk like you, with the courage to face the unknown and the strength to survive it. So this is really good dialogue. Really like it. Good role play. It's in the context of the adventure. You're not having to sit here and try to think about, I mean, you could change it, this obviously. And then when discussing the fire giant encounter, so there is an encounter that comes up, and this is what he might say. A fire giant, you say? Aye, that confirms my worst fears. The giants have always been a thorn in our side. But if they're stirred up, it means something precious has been disturbed. There's ancient magic in those depths, powerful enough to drive even a giant to madness. You must find what they seek and secure it before they tear through the kingdom like an avalanche. So this is kind of, I really like this. This is really rich. This is the stuff I really enjoy. This is the fun part, you know, even though it's some work. I mean, this is part of being a creator and a GM. You got to put in some effort to get what you want out of it. And the more effort and practice you put into it, the easier it gets. Because then you get kind of comfortable with formatting and the behavior of the platform, and then you're not struggling as much. In the beginning, it is kind of a bear, but after you get used to it, it really does. So this is what I would do in this case: is I just keep building this dialogue. I got 5 entries, so I'd put those in here and call it good. It's really good stuff. I'm really, really like this. It's almost like writing your own story. It is basically, but I mean like writing your own novel. And that's kind of one of the things that I've kind of pursued over my life is to write books. And now that when I got into D&D and role playing games, I kind of wanted to write those type of books instead of just a regular novel. It's a lot different than writing a regular story, that's for sure, because it really gets into mechanics and that sort of stuff. So it's a lot different than writing for just um, a novel. Novels take a different type of discipline and approach, but I think having a good outline and a good idea of what you're trying to achieve helps this process a ton. You don't know what you want, you're going to be there all day trying to figure that out. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. Control Tab, and there's all the dialogue for this encounter. Potential dialogue. You don't even have, you can make up your own, but this gives the GM something to work from. And I think that's something that I get pissed about when I'm looking at products, even Wizards of the Coast products. Sometimes that's just garbage. Like there's hardly anything there. There's no substance to it. And when you can do stuff like this and add your own, and you'll know where everything is and you'll know about it, and once you have that under your belt, it's so much easier to run. So yep, but for some of the images mostly, yeah, I hear you. Okay, folks.